Hello, everybody. This is Anthony. Be honest from Mission Start Podcast, and we have another Conover episode. If you, yeah, I can't even talk today. If you're expecting a TwitchCon podcast episode, that is coming in the near future. But for this week, while I was at TwitchCon, we sent two of our reporters to check out Kraken-Con, and with me today is JD and Katutan.
Hi.
Hi.
And they're here to tell us everything about Kraken-Con. So, where to begin? So girls, tell me, because the one thing that, and it was on my calendar because I really wanted to go, but I couldn't. The big thing for me that stood out from this year's announcement of Kraken-Con in the fall was that the fact it was being held on a ship. How was that like first when you guys first approached the con?
It was interesting.
Yeah, it was definitely interesting. A different location than usual. I think both me and JD have been to Kraken-Con several times in the past when it was still at the Oakland Convention Center.
Yeah.
So super different. Definitely a great place for photo opportunities.
Definitely if you wore a cosplay that was nautical themed, it was an amazing place to get like a free kind of location shoot in. That was definitely cool.
Yeah, I saw even just hallway shots in the hangar bay itself looked really cool too because it had like planes in the background and things like that. So even just walking by and taking pictures of cosplayers, the backgrounds looked really cool. So
that was definitely cool.
Instead of your average like hall shot where you have like vendors tables and like convention center backgrounds, you've got like ships in the background,
planes
water in the background.
Stuff.
Super cool.
Yeah, it was definitely cool. Though mobility-wise, it was kind of difficult to navigate through the ship. The stairways and getting around was kind of hard because the stairways were super narrow and very steep. So if you were in cosplay or you had a prop or you had some unfavorable shoes on, it was kind of difficult, but
yeah, definitely
couldn't handle.
Okay.
The one big downside of it was it's not handicap accessible.
Yeah, that was definitely a big problem.
I see.
And I think they stated that on the website when you bought tickets, but not very clearly. So I saw a lot of people really concerned about that. There was one person, I saw at least one person who was in a wheelchair, and they had to get in and out of the upper floor. There was a huge line that started forming to get from the base floor to the upper area because they had to get a wheelchair down from the area that you're usually not supposed to exit from. So that started causing a lot of congestion too.
I see. Yeah, like there definitely was a different setting for this convention, and something you don't normally see. Like I've seen this type of thing happen with another convention I can't remember at the moment that did it last year. So it's a cool idea and concept, but there's definitely some downsides from what I'm hearing from you two.
Yeah, definitely.
In terms of how they transition a convention into the ship area or onto the ship. So how were some of the things that you would normally see at a convention handled at this year's Kraken-Con?
So like panels usually in like hotel conference rooms and stuff like that, they were in different rooms in the ship. I went to the press Q&A with all of the guests, and that was in what later turned into the screening room, which was this amazing room that, I mean, I'm not really sure what they use it in a ship, but it was very steep, kind of like I don't know, it was very steep, like a viewing room, and it had seats that go up, and it was really cool. So it was cool to see them use the ship's rooms as parts of the convention. I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, and then for I think the guest of honor panels, there weren't too many panels since because it was on the ship. I'm sure it's more expensive to rent out the ship than like a convention center. It was only for one day, so they kind of had to cram everything that they could into like a span of like 7 hours, I think.
Yeah, it was only from like 9 to 5, and you had to leave at exactly 5. They kicked everyone off the ship.
Okay. In terms of it does like make a lot of sense. Renting out a ship is a lot more expensive than a building for obvious reasons. So the thing that I noticed in the photos also was like Again, like the whole ship theme, like anybody who had that kind of, I mean, obviously the Kantai collection cosplayers or loving it.
Oh, they were great. They
Yeah.
looked so good.
There's definitely were some other cosplays that were also ship themed that also fit the bill when it came to the area. What were some of the cosplays that kind of stood out to you?
The Kantai collection cosplayers looked so good. They were all really into it.
They were just, I mean, I think the cosplay at this con was just so on fleek. It was amazing. Everyone who I saw looked absolutely fantastic. So,
Okay,
I don't know. I was just kind of fangirling over everyone.
that's cool.
I think the winner of the cosplay contest was it Shepard from Mass Effect?
It was Shepard from Mass Effect, and his first costume, I think it was the first costume he'd ever made.
Oh
Took
my
him like
God.
over a year to make, and oh my God, it was amazing.
He looked
Nice.
really good.
It was so fantastic.
Awesome.
There's a bunch of really cool pictures of him online already. I did a photo shoot with a photographer. He did some photos of him too, and I'm like, oh my God, your costume looks exactly like you stepped out of a game. It was
Yeah, it
great.
really did. It was just kind of like, and this was your first costume you ever made? Can I be jealous? Is that like a real thing?
Some people are just super talented.
I know. I'm just like, just take your talent and like pour it into me. Like that's all I want. But no, all the cosplay was fantastic. Everyone in the contest, the costume contest, was like, they were I think that was one of the big things that I noticed is like a lot of people in the costume contest were like, oh yeah, this is like the first costume I've ever made, and it's absolutely drop dead amazing. And I'm just like, but wait, how?
Oh yeah, the winner for the novice.
The winner for the novice, I
was
got her.
Doll from Kuroshitsuji, I think.
Yeah, I think so. And it was the first costume she had made, and it looked amazing. And there was a Sailor V whose seam work was absolutely perfect.
Wow.
And that was the first costume she'd ever made.
Wow.
So, I don't know. I don't know how people are so talented.
Oh yeah.
But I'm glad they all gather in one place so I can look at them all.
That's cool. I mean, it's always exciting to hear new cosplayers come about and
Yeah.
definitely take their try and cosplay. And in some cases they're really really good in the first try. So.
Some talented people.
Definitely.
But a really cool thing about Kraken-Con too is because it doesn't market itself as strictly an anime convention.
Exactly, yeah.
You see a lot of costumes from things that aren't anime too, so it markets itself as kind of like a free-for-all sci-fi, comic, anime, anything, movies, things like that. So the costumes that Kraken-Con gets, I feel like, are a lot more unique than other cons that I've gone to.
Yeah, that's definitely something. Like in SAC Anime's Masquerade, you can only enter if it fits the theme of the convention, which is Japanese pop culture. But in the Kraken-Con contest, there are no guidelines, pretty much, so you can enter costumes and anything that, and yeah, so you just get super unique costumes that are amazing that you wouldn't see otherwise.
There's a group of cosplayers that I always see at Kraken-Con that always do like the most unique groups. I think maybe a year and a half back, I think spring of 2014, they did like these characters from Sesame Street or the Muppets or something. I can't remember what they're called. And then the year after that, or this Kraken-Con after that, they did the cast of Beetlejuice.
I think I saw them. I think I know who you're talking about.
Yeah, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But they're always really cool because they always pick really interesting things that nobody else would even think about doing.
Yeah, there was a Sesame Street group who did the costume contest, and they made their costumes the night before. And they did the Count and
yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, and they looked amazing. They looked like they straight out of Sesame Street.
Nice.
That was cool. You get some really interesting costumes at Kraken-Con. It's definitely interesting con, unique in all aspects.
Yeah, definitely.
It is something interesting, or it's funny how you bring up that Kraken-Con doesn't position itself as an anime convention. Yeah, in my mind, it kind of, felt like it, or like it was initially, every other convention in California that has that that theme of it, but like now that you mentioned it, like I'm thinking about it, it's like they actually don't advertise themselves that way, so
Mm-hmm.
that's interesting. Um, so in terms of like correct me if I'm wrong, like what was what was the pricing like for this 1 day con?
It was a little
It
on
was pricey.
expensive side for being 1 day. I think it was 36 pre-reg
Yeah,
Ooh.
and then 40 at the door.
right.
So because I think what they had to do was they had to cover the cost of the ship.
Mm-hmm.
The ship, normally the admission to the ship is anywhere from like $15 to $25.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So they had to cover the cost of the ship as well as the cost of the convention. So it just made it a little bit more on the pricey side.
Mm. To be fair, like it was the main draw of the convention was being on a ship.
Right.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then included in the admission was also like full access to all the
All the
the
ships.
entire museum.
Yeah.
Exactly. So which includes all the exhibits and all of the other things that they
Tours.
have, tours and things like that. The flight simulator,
They
which
had a-
I went on,
they had a
and that
flight-
made me.
They had a flight
Yes.
simulator.
Yeah, I went on the flight simulator. It's a little bit dated since the ship's been around for quite a while. So
Mhm.
well, the group I was in was cracking a lot of jokes. Like, oh, look, this flight simulator running on like Kojima's new Fox engine. And they're
Nice.
like, oh, Metal Gear Solid 5 really sure looks different than I expected it to look.
That's awesome.
But it was really cool. It made my friend a little bit motion sick. She's like, oh, okay, I think I want to get off of this now. But they do tell you, oh, don't get on this if you get motion sick. But it was pretty cool. Like, I don't think I've ever gone to a convention that had a flight simulator on it. So
Yeah,
that's
it definitely had like a lot of unique attractions
Mm-hmm.
that made it very appealing.
What
There
was
were definitely a lot of things going on for such a small one-day convention. I tried to do as many of the attractions as I could. They had an escape game, the flight simulator, and then in conjunction with the ship, they had the ghost tours, which basically go into a lower section of the ship, and they tell you some stories about how they believe the ship is haunted. I think the USS Hornet was actually featured on like an episode of Ghost Hunters or Ghost Adventures
oh,
or one
really?
of those shows. So yeah, they kind of tell you about the ghost stories and things like that. Unfortunately, because the groups are so much larger than they anticipate them to be, because it's a convention of like 2,500 people.
Yeah.
My ghost tour group was about 50 people, 40 or 50 people, so they couldn't really get you into any of the narrow corridors without like triggering the fire like capacity or something like that.
Oh man.
So unfortunately, we didn't get to walk around too much, but they showed us some sections of the ship that are allegedly haunted and told us some pretty cool ghost stories. So
Can you imagine if there was a test of courage thing set up for that specific area of the ship?
I was actually kind of hoping that they would do that, because there was this room next to us that was like glowing red, and I really wanted to go inside. And I'm like, there's something going on in there. That room is literally glowing red.
Man, if I was there and if I was there and I saw glowing red, like all I can think of at that moment probably be like Dead Space. And just like every other corner is it's like gonna be a necromorph popping up at any given moment. That's really cool. That's awesome. Was it on the part of the staff of the ship that were offering these attractions, or was it more or less the staff of the convention, Kraken-Con staff, with these ideas for the attractions?
For the most part, I think actually I saw more ship staff than I saw Kraken-Con staff.
There was a lot of ship staff, and they were the nicest people
They were very nice.
in the whole wide world.
Oh, okay.
They were so nice.
They were so sweet.
Very accommodating.
Very
They're-
funny.
They were really into the costumes. They would
They
always
were.
ask questions about, like, what are you wearing? Can you explain what you're wearing? And things like that.
Mm.
They're really into it.
Because I have my fish bones prop. I had this one guy and was like, this older man, he was like, did you catch that fish by yourself? And I was just like, well, yes, I did. And we had a conversation about how I caught my fish bones prop. And, I mean, yeah, they were just really into the whole thing. I don't think they had ever experienced something like that on their ship. So they were really into it.
It must have been very interesting to see a bunch of cosplayers and nerds kind of come onto a ship.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
I remember as we were leaving, they were making an announcement to have people leave the ship at around 5 o'clock, and I heard them saying, all USS Hornet museum attendees, if you can please leave the ship, and also all Kraken-Con people. Because they weren't sure really what to call us, but that was pretty funny.
Yeah, they were. But I think they thought it was pretty fun.
That's great to hear. That's awesome. So, in terms of the other stuff you would normally see, like, so was there a quote unquote dealer's hall at this?
Yeah, there
There
was.
was, yeah.
So, how was that set up? Was that in a span of the area of the ship or outside the ship?
It was relatively small.
Yeah, they did what they could with the space.
Yeah, they did what they could. They had some vendors and some artists and, the usual crowd that you would see. But it was small. Walkways were what they could manage with the space.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So there was a number you kind of threw out there. We're talking about like around 2,500 people came to.
Right. I think that's what the website says was they reached full capacity. I think it was around either like 2,200, between 2,200 and 2,500.
Something like that.
They were at max capacity, so they sold all the tickets that they could.
Yep.
That's really good. That's really good. I mean, like considering like for one day in a ship, and for what they're going for, that turned out to be quite well.
Yeah, I think they did really well.
Mhm.
I've volunteered for Kraken-Con, I think spring of 2014 or 2013, I don't remember.
Mhm.
And so I got to meet the people who put it together. They're a married couple. I think their names are Lindsay and Steven. And they're
Oh.
really, really, really nice.
They are very nice
They're
people.
so nice.
My
They're-
friend is friends with them, and they are the sweetest people.
And I
Wow.
think their whole goal with Kraken-Con is to just put together a con that's different from all the other ones and just give everybody a unique experience and a good time. So it's really cool that they always come up with something different to put into Kraken-Con, since
Mhm.
I think last year they had like a planetarium on the floor.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
There was something like that because it.
I uh, yeah, could you explain that more? Like I don't recall that being a thing at Kraken-Con. But yeah, it was. Yeah, explain that.
So I think from what I remember, I didn't get a chance to go in because it was like super crowded and everyone wanted to go in this planetarium. So I think they basically got the Lawrence Hall of Science, which is also, I think it's in Berkeley, so not too far, to bring this basically transportable, like, traveling planetarium, which is...
Something was going on that weekend too with like space and stuff
Yeah.
to like look at stuff in space.
So they had this big inflatable thing that kind of looked like an igloo inside of the convention center that was kind of tucked away in a corner. And from what I understand, I didn't get a chance to go inside, but they would project like the night sky onto the top of this igloo kind of thing, and you would kind of see like a rendition of the like night sky, but inside. It was pretty cool. It's something you also don't see at conventions, of like traveling planetarium.
Nice. That's awesome. So definitely they're not. Excuse me. They're definitely the owners of Kraken-Con are out there to definitely give a unique experience to a convention instead of having a usual convention that you see in every other area of California.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Since we do have a lot of conventions in California, we're kind of blessed to be kind of the central point of the U.S. where somehow all the anime conventions, big and small, sort of end up. So as California natives, we kind of get to go to a lot of cons, but I still think Kraken-Con sticks out as being one of the more unique cons that I've ever really gone to.
Yeah.
So many.
I definitely agree. It has a very specific, unique flair to it. Some sort of squidly pizzazz that makes everyone happy.
I see where you're going with that reference there. So getting back to Kraken-Con, in terms of other things there at the convention, the one thing I noticed, and these are photos, or this is something I noticed from other people who are taking photos and videos at the con. So the panels, were they held like in a it looked like a classroom?
Yeah, they were kind of like a classroom. There was like a chalkboard and stuff, and it looked very, I don't know, I thought it was really cool. They were really neat.
They also held some outside. While I was at the Splatoon gathering, there was also Zach Callison's panel, the voice actor for Steven Universe, who voiced Steven.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they held most of the like main guest panels outside on the flight deck, I think is what they called it.
Yeah, the flight deck probably have some more people be able to go because there was such a small rooms. You couldn't fit too many people in there, so a lot of the main events were held up on the flight deck.
Which I think kind of worked in its favor a lot, since I remember from attending panels in the past at other cons, it gets pretty hard to hear with like inside of this room because the sound doesn't really, it kind of just bounces around the room and doesn't really get to the back. But with the open space, the sound is easily kind of gets all over the flight deck, and I could hear what he was saying from the panel on the other side of the flight deck.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty cool too, because I mean, if you were waiting in line for autographs, you could also, like, I was waiting in line for autographs, and I was simultaneously watching Christy Carlson Romano's panel. Yeah, it was so cool. So I got to see her panel while doing something else.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so it was more. Okay, so it was a happy accident, as it were, where you're standing in line for an autograph, but at the same time, because the audio can reach in the span of where you're at to where the main events area is at, then yeah, you get 2 in 1.
Yeah, exactly. So you're not wasting a bunch of time just standing in line, but you're actually watching another panel as well, which is super cool. And like I was at the Splatoon gathering, kind of like half participating in the gathering and half listening to Zach Callison's panel. It's super fun.
That's awesome. That's really cool. So the thing that I'm kind of curious about, because this happens, because we go to conventions, and this always seems to be some weird, random, or funny moment that happens only at conventions that you can only explain that, yeah, it's a convention, it's an anime convention. Did any moment for you kind of like happen for you at Kraken-Con that were just like made your weekend?
Let's see. Oh yeah, I was dressed as Callie from Splatoon, one of the Squid sisters. She's like an idol, and there was a little group of, there were a lot of Splatoon cosplayers at this con since it's on a boat and like squids and everything like that. So, and the whole theme is squids because it's krakens and stuff. So I was just walking around and I saw this little family, this whole family with like the mom, the dad, and their 2 little like sons dressed as all Splatoon characters.
Haha, sick.
And they come running up to me and they're like, "It's Callie! It's Callie! Can you say stay fresh?" And I was like, "This is so cute! I want to cry!"
Aww.
It was so cute. Like they really thought I was her, and I was like, "Ah!"
That's like a Disney princess moment.
Yes, exactly. And I was like, "I'm gonna cry right here."
That's awesome.
Because they're like, "You're Callie," and I'm like, "Yeah,
That's great.
So that made my weekend.
That's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Oh man. I have. J, do you have moments?
I mean, I thought I think the best part was I got to the press panel, the press Q&A that they had, and I could not find where it was for like the longest time. So I walked in kind of late, and I walked in right as Sarah Williams was kind of giving her panel and her Q&A, and I walked in, I'm wearing Jinx, and she was like, "Speaking of Jinx," and she did the Jinx voice, and I thought that was pretty cool because very timely. I don't know, I was just a little Star Trek. She was struck. She was just like, "Oh, you're Jinx," and I'm like, "I am Jinx. You're Jinx too." So that was really cool. Yeah, she's funny.
Awesome. Yeah, Sarah Williams is really cool. I met her a few times. Yeah, she's really funny and she's really awesome.
She is a kooky personality.
Oh yeah.
For sure. In her panel, someone asked what her favorite character was that she had voiced, and she was like, "Well, I can't really choose. After I finish a character, I kind of take my character and I put them in my little character mind zoo, where all my characters that I ever voiced play together in my mind."
Oh my God,
in this
that's
little
sweet.
zoo, and I was just like, "Oh my God!" And she was just like, "No, this is a real thing that I imagine all the time." And I'm just like,
What a nerd.
"What a nerd!" Yeah, I was like, "You're so funny." It was so funny.
That's great. That is awesome. So I can imagine that being on the ship and having fun and all is great, but at some point you gotta get some food in your stomach. So like, was there
So good.
Okay, so tell me, was there food on the ship, and if so, what was it?
So there was food on the ship, like the normal thing that they usually have for the USS Hornet. It's like kind of like a concession stand with, we all go to cons and we pay for our overpriced con food. It's like cafeteria food.
Yeah.
So I avoided that at all costs because I didn't want cafeteria food. But because it was outdoors, Kraken-Con got 2 food trucks.
Yeah, that was
Oh,
so
that's
cool.
great. That's
It was so good.
wow.
Like, unbelievable.
I
Um,
opted for the takoyaki on the flight deck. They had a takoyaki stand on the flight deck that was also
Nice.
oh yeah,
takoyaki-ish.
they had takoyaki on the flight deck. That was pretty cool. I avoided that because I was dressed as a squid and I thought that was weird.
It was a little weird having squid being served on a Kraken-Con, but
Yeah, they actually said that like in their advertisements. They're like,
yeah,
as much as we don't want to eat our squid brethren, I know we will get hungry, so we're gonna have takoyaki on the flight deck.
yeah.
That's great.
But what I ended up eating was there were two food trucks on the basically where the registration was right outside the ship, and there was a soul food truck and like a Korean barbecue truck.
Mm-hmm.
I opted for the soul food, which is basically fried chicken and waffles,
Mm.
and oh my god, it was so good.
Wow.
I had like fried chicken bits and waffle bits. My friend had this fried chicken waffle fried egg sandwich,
Mm.
and like they've been thinking about it like I think the other day we were trying to figure out what we wanted for lunch, and they were like, I really want that waffle sandwich that I had at Kraken-Con. So easily the best food I've ever eaten, like on site at a con. It was so good.
Wow. Nice.
I think having food trucks there was like the smartest idea. Whoever thought about that was a gold star for them.
Mm-hmm.
So yummy. It was delicious.
Definitely. So I'm just curious. So without the food trucks, was there a food place like nearby in sight, or what is it like the location wise? Where is it kind of in a rural area, or?
I mean, I didn't see any food places walking distance close.
Yeah, no, definitely not. I'm pretty familiar with the East Bay, so the Alameda area that it was in was pretty much all like ships and cargo bases. So it's basically in an army base. So it used to be an army base. So it's pretty isolated from the rest of the area. Alameda is kind of like a stationary man-made island. So it's kind of just off of West Oakland. If you drive maybe a mile or so out from where you are, you run into an In-N-Out. But other than that, that's all I can think of.
Gotcha. Okay. So it was more or less just kind of a thing that the staff at Kraken-Con have to do.
Yes, exactly, because there's nowhere really to go to eat within walking distance at all.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes plenty sense. But that's also very smart as well. Definitely get on them for doing that for sure.
Good for the food trucks too. I bet they made bank that day.
Oh,
I know.
yeah.
It was so good. I'm still thinking about the food. I've like tracked down that food truck that we ate at. It's in Fremont, and I'm like, we gotta go back.
Awesome. So the last few things I want to ask, because we talked about it briefly. How were the gatherings? Like how were they?
They were,
Like tiny, but
yeah, pretty
fun.
tiny.
Mm-hmm.
I think I went to the league gathering and there were only like less than 10 people who went.
Yeah, I got some photos of that. But despite how small they were, I think it was still like a happy like time to meet everyone and see everyone. All the costumes looked really, really good.
I
There's
thought
some
it was
photos.
I thought it was kind of cool to have small gatherings because it made it more intimate. Like you actually got
Mhm.
like I got to know the people while we were taking pictures, and I actually like made some connections through that. So I thought that was cool because sometimes gatherings they get so big, it's just kind of like, okay, this person, this group of people, go go go. We only have an hour. This one was kind of more flexible of what you wanted to do. I thought it was cool.
Yeah, everybody looked really good. There's some pictures on the website in the Kraken-Con gallery of the league gathering, and everyone looked really, really cool. The costumes all looked really nice. Like all of you guys looked really good. You guys had these huge props, and I'm just like, wow, league cosplayers go so hard.
Oh, yes, without a
League
doubt.
cosplayers go so hard.
If there is one particular cosplay group I always respect, or whatever convention I go to, it's the league cosplayers. Those
Yeah.
guys,
League cosplayers go hard.
They do.
Oh man, they go in like a full 100% on their costumes, and the props and armor that they make from each costume is ridiculously good.
Yeah.
I have like first-hand experience with league cosplayers because my friend cosplays as Ari,
Mm-hmm.
and she made all 8 tails, and she's very, very short, so each tail was like about her height, and I had to maneuver her around AX, and yeah, she goes hard. It was yeah, these cosplayers go so hard.
That's awesome.
But the Splatoon gathering, the pictures from that, those were pretty awesome. There were so many Splatoon cosplayers.
There were so many Splatoon cosplayers. It was so cool. I always think there were a couple other people cosplaying as the Squid Sisters, but I think they only did it for the cosplay contest, so they changed like halfway through the day.
Yeah.
So I was kind of the one Squid Sister wandering around, and every time I ran into another Squid, they'd be like, "Oh my God, it's Callie," and they started like bowing, and I'm like, "This is so really, really weird." And then I was actually kind of late to the Splatoon gathering because I got stuck in line trying to get up to the flight deck, like I said earlier, because there was a wheelchair trying to make its way down because it's like, not like handicap accessible.
Mm-hmm.
So I got up there maybe like 5 minutes late. So like kind of arriving fashionably late to the Splatoon gathering where there were no other Squid Sisters. And then when I arrived, everybody started shouting and they were like, "Stay fresh!" And I'm like, "I'm going to cry."
It's like, I'm here now. The party can begin. Mm-hmm, yes.
And I was like, "Oh, that looks so nice." Yeah, I met a lot of really cool people there, and the photos came out really good. Like,
Yeah.
cosplays are really colorful, and especially with the backdrop of the ship in the background and water.
Yeah, it looked awesome.
Really, really cool.
Mm-hmm. That's great. That's awesome to hear. In terms of anything else that was not talked about in the podcast, what was there anything else that you guys might have checked out, or was there anything else that that we might have missed out that you want to bring up on the podcast?
I think one of the things that I noticed was, I mean, one time location thing, if you didn't wear sunscreen that day, you were boned. Like, I didn't expect the con to take place so much outside
Right.
on the flight deck. So when I went, I totally didn't realize sunscreen was like an option. So I had the most vicious sunburn after. So, and I now, because I was wearing Jinx, I have like the strangest tan line. So that's something I'll have to live with for the rest of fall and winter.
Yeah, I don't sunburn at all. I just get darker. So I noticed when
lucky
when I got back from Kraken-Con, I was like maybe 2 shades darker. I was like, what happened to me? But I don't go outside very much other than going to cons, so it started to fade already.
Yeah, I pretty much stayed inside all summer. This was like the only time I got sunburn, and it was so bad. I like couldn't move the next day. I was just like in so much pain. Everything hurts.
But yeah, sunscreen was definitely, I'm used to doing sunscreen for cons since I'm a regular at AX and standing in 4-hour lines in the grueling LA heat.
Man,
So I'm pretty used to that kind of stuff.
I had a moment of not smartedness about sunscreen, so
it happens.
hindsight is 20/20.
Yeah, it happens. I mean, we've all been there and done it at least once or twice in our lives being a cosplayer. Like, I've done it.
Yep.
I've done it my fair share.
But
yeah.
I mean, there was no way I wasn't gonna stand in that line to get. I got Sarah Williams to sign my Fishbones prop, so
I thought that was so cool.
I was not gonna leave that line at all.
Like, I will suffer the sunburn.
It was a price to pay, but you know what? Worth.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I definitely can agree that I think that's pretty worth it for sure. So, overall thoughts. Overall thoughts on Kraken-Con. You know, what do you think? I mean, obviously this is a one-time thing for them, and I think it's a great idea that they're definitely experimenting with, like, the idea of, like, you know, what type of thing we should do for next convention, or, you know, a convention afterwards after that. But, like, just overall thoughts about this convention, what they could have done better, you know, what there were things that didn't go too well, and so on.
I think for the experience, because it's a one-time thing, I think it was definitely cool to just have it somewhere like this. The mobility was definitely an issue. The lack of handicap access was definitely an issue. I do feel like a few of their events were a little bit poorly planned out. I did the escape game early in the day, and their puzzles were, like, some of the answers to the puzzles were incorrect, or the solutions were incorrect, so that was a little bit rushed. It was still fun. They always have something different like that at every Kraken-Con.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most most part. I think it would probably not work again for like if it were a regular thing to hold a convention on a boat like this because of the lack of mobility. But for a one-time thing, I definitely think it was a really cool experience. But for the upcoming Kraken-Con, it's returning back to the Oakland Convention Center. And I think it'll be okay to have it back at a convention center again to just sort of have that free access of being able to move around and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that mobility was probably one of the biggest issues, but I think that the staff and everyone on the ship did their best to kind of work with what they could. There was no way to like make the stairways wider or stuff like that. So I think they did the best that they could have. Handicap accessibility was definitely one of the main issues, but something that you have to like anticipate with going to a venue like that. But other than that, I think it was a cool experience for a lot of the people there. Like I had never been on the USS Hornet before, so it was definitely a really cool experience. And being there with like con friends and everything just made it a whole lot more fun. And I think, you know, as a one-time thing, I am so happy I went, and I thought it was a great experience. And perhaps people might use the venue now for like cosplay gatherings and stuff, to use the background and the backdrop for pictures. And I think that exposed a lot about the ability to be photographed there is pretty cool. So I think that was a cool aspect.
I cannot tell you guys, the minute they announced I was going to be on a ship for this year's Kraken-Con Fall, I was like, I was first to say like, I am definitely going this no matter what. And then TwitchCon was announced the same weekend.
There were so many cons.
There were so many things
like,
happening that weekend, yeah.
Because it was like YowieCon, then TwitchCon, then Kraken-Con, and I'm like, oh my god, I can't go to all of these.
I know, right? I just find it funny that somehow like so many conventions are happening that weekend. I feel like they planned it on purpose.
I feel like whenever I want to go to a certain con, there are so many conflicting cons also happening. So I think it's just the con gods making you choose. That's what I've just concluded. It was con gods making me choose. Okay.
I guess it's better for my wallet since
I
have to pick and choose.
Yeah, basically.
Right. Well, it is what it is. You guys went to Kraken-Con. I went to TwitchCon, but at the end of the day, everybody had a good time, wherever you may be. But thank you guys for joining me for the podcast to talk about everything about Kraken-Con. Before we close out the show, JD, where can I find you on the internet?
You can find me at JD, just the letters JD Cosplay on Twitter, and on Cosplay Amino app, same handle, JD Cosplay.
Awesome. And Katsu10, where can they find you on the internet?
You can find me in the same places on Instagram at justkazutan, Kasuutan. I'm also on Tumblr and Facebook, Twitter, and Cosplay Amino, all under the same name.
Awesome. You can find me personally on Twitter at Naruto. You can follow the work that we all do on our website at missionstartpodcast.com. Definitely check out this podcast. If you enjoy listening to this podcast, be sure to tell everybody, tell your friends, tell your family, subscribe to our iTunes and Stitcher, as well as other places we post this on. By the time we listen to this, all the TwitchCon footage will be up. All the videos have been edited and uploaded to our YouTube channel and also on our website. And I think the next one coming up is going to be Kamikaze. Somebody's going to go and cover pretty soon, as well as other conventions that's down the pipeline. So that's going to do it for us. But